In my recent review of Radioddity's new GS10B Pro HT, I promised a deeper dive into programming. Well, here it is. I get comments on videos from time to time about spending more time talking about radio programming using either the Bluetooth apps or the radio CPS or customer programming software. While there are lots of similarities, occasionally a new radio will have an app or CPS that's a bit different and worth a deeper dive. The GS10B Pro is one of those radios. The Walkie Talkie tool app isn't much different. It's one of the programming options for the GS10B Pro. Here's a quick overview of that process. We're going to start by hitting the little icon of the radio on the bottom. We're going to connect to Bluetooth. It says there's a walkie-talkie, and that's the only one that I've got out there, so we're going to connect it. Next, we're going to select our model, which is right here at the top. The GS10B Pro is right here. We're going to then go down to the frequency read, write, and set. So we'll click this one. And we're going to start by reading from the radio. As you can see, it's reading, and the Radioddity radio itself has a very high flashing red LED there on the top. So now we've got the channel. So if we hit the current channel number, we'll give a number. We can see it's channel 1. It's got VHF call, which is what I've labeled it. These are the channels in the radio already, the frequencies and so forth. We want to change the channel. We can go to, say, channel 5, and it's a repeater on a hospital nearby. There's the frequencies, the CTCSS code, and all of the things that you can set for this. Now, we can also go over to optional, and there is where we're going to look at the various menu items that are in the radio. And these options include power saving, squelch level, backlight. I've got it on right now because I'm planning to do the recordings for this video. Otherwise, you turn it off and you get a range of timing, timeout timer, all that kind of stuff. I've got display area A as a name, and then as display area B as the frequency. So in A, the name is big and the frequency is small, and then on B, the frequency is big and the name is small. So that works out pretty well. We've got things like end tone squelch, tone elimination, and then what we're looking for down here are the side key programming. And the one I want to call to your attention is side key 3. I've got it side key 3 long set to radio. And so you can see there are a number of choices that we can make, but to use the high frequency radio with this GS10B Pro, you have to have one of these side keys set. So I've got a short key on 2 as changing the power settings, a long key changing it to the frequency spectrum display, and a short key, short press on side key 3 turns on the NOAA weather. So those are what works for me. Obviously, set what works for you. And then when we have all of our channels done, we can hit write. And then we're going to write to the radio and move all that data back. And now the radio is flashing green. And so now that we've got the information written back to the radio, we can save this by hitting the save button right there. We're going to give it a name, and I just give it today's date. And then the number of the radio. And hit OK. The save has been successful, and so now we'll have the ability to reload this profile into the radio if we've made some changes or made some mistakes and we just want to reset the radio back to what this original programming code plug set. So that's the Walkie-Talkie app. Now, there are a number of social related things in the Walkie-Talkie app that you need to log in and establish an account for. But as we've seen, we don't need to do that just to save code plugs to our phone. I normally don't do initial programming on apps like Walkie-Talkie Tool. They are very handy when making changes. Certainly easier than programming channels into the radio directly. They're also helpful when all you want to do is reset the radio to a known configuration. Manufacturers' provided CPSs are all pretty similar too. Most key functions are the same. These programs are normally available as free downloads from your radio seller's website. The CPS for the GS10B Pro sets itself apart in that it makes importing channel settings from Chirp really easy. As you'll see in a minute, I was able to import what is basically my standard set of channels from another radio setup file directly from Chirp. That radio was a different model and brand from the GS10B Pro. What that means to you is that if you have a Chirp-compatible radio already saved onto your computer, you can import that channel listing directly into your GS10B Pro without manipulating the CSV file to match the database structure of your GS10B Pro. Since I do a lot of radio reviews, I end up programming a lot of radios. Even using cut and paste functions in Windows, I often spend over an hour adding my standard set of channels into a new radio. With the GS10B Pro's ability to import CSV files in the standard Chirp output format, that task literally took just a couple of minutes. While the GS10B Pro is not yet Chirp compatible, this feature almost completely negates that shortcoming. Here's a quick overview of the CPS. So after opening the program, you'll see that it's got the typical layout with, file menu here, edit, programming, settings, tools, and help. And then you can also see here that there's a couple of icons for the commonly used tasks that you can use instead of those. And then here at the top, you can see it's the 10B Pro, and this is 1.0.3. Now, with all of these, the first thing we're going to want to do is we want to check our device manager. So we'll bring device manager in, and we'll see that I've got a COM5, which is a USB serial port, and I'm using an FTTI cable. And so that seems to work, and so I want to remember COM5. So I'm going to go up to Settings, Serial Port, choose COM5, hit OK. And the next thing I'm going to do is read from the radio. Now, your radio coming out of the box isn't going to have all the stuff that mine has since I've already programmed it, but reading is a good place to start. So we'll read. It says wait, and you're going to wait a long time if you don't press the start button. So we'll press start, and then now we'll read from the radio. It says data read successful. That total time was about 35 or 40 seconds. Then you see the progress bar came across here, and then all the things that I've programmed are here. And I put these into kind of some blocks. I've got my favorite local repeaters in the 2-meter band. I've got some channels for quartzite when I go camping at Quartz Fest. And then I've got some 440 or 70 centimeter repeaters. Then down here I loaded in the GMRS channel. They don't plan to transmit, but I can listen. And so I've got those all programmed in. And using Chirp, you can also add railroad channels or marine channels. There's a whole bunch of things there that you can carry over into this should you choose to make use of more of the frequencies than what I do. Now, to make a change or to make an add, you simply click in the frequency, and you're going to think, oh, it doesn't work. Well, that's the name. So you got to start over here with the channel. And so I'm just going to put one in. I'm going to delete it again in here just a second. But 146.520 is the UHF call. So when I hit out of that, everything fills in. So I can make changes to CCTSS. I can put in the frequency here for transmit if it's a repeater, so there'll be an offset. All of this goes in automatically, and at that point then I can click over here and I can name. And so I have all this information. Now in this case I'm just going to delete that because I've already got that. So when I delete the frequency, click out, everything else is going to delete. And that works for all of the things here in the channel. Now I want to show you something real quick in Excel, because here is the frequencies that I imported from another radio, another brand, and then I added the GMRS channels, and I added the weather channels, which are hard programmed into the radio. I didn't need to have done that, as it turns out. Here's where I could have added in the railroad channels or the marine band channels, but I did this in Chirp, and I used the export function in Chirp, and then some of the standard listings in the file menu in Chirp to download. You can also use the search menu in Chirp to get all the repeaters in your local area. You can use Chirp to call them out and then export them. And this is the order that they're going to come out of Chirp. And then what I was able to do was to click down here, and then I could import that Chirp CSV file, and it loaded just like this. It was really cool. So since it's not yet supported by Chirp, you can still build your channels in Chirp, export them, and then import them to the radio via Chirp. Now, if I go up to edit, I can see the other thing. So this was channel. I can go into VFO mode. It opens up where my VFO is going to open basically the first time. Otherwise, it'll open where you closed it, and fill this out. You can then go into the optional features mode, and here are all the things in the menu that you can set. So I've got my squelch, battery save mode, timeout timer, and then over here are my shortcut keys. And a couple of things to point out to you. First, I've got this set. I like to be able to use a short press to change power. A long press, I can open up my spectrum scope. Short press on PF number 3 or the second side key, I'm going to open up the weather channels, and then a long press on PF3, I can open up the radio mode. And you have to assign radio to one of these shortcut keys. Otherwise, it's going to be just kind of a pain to open up the HF portion of the receiver. Now in PF2 long, it's got a choice for PTTB. And so if you want to use that second orange wrapped PTT button on the side of your radio, you would need to set that for PF2 long, and that way you could use it for PTT for the lower register in your radio. However, that's not something I like to do, and so I've got it set to call the spectrum scope. And so here are all the other menu items, and these are all dealt with via drop down boxes, so you can make the choices, and those occur much easier than keying them in on the radio, or for that matter on the app. The other thing that we can program, or that we can edit here, is DTMF codes. I don't use DTMF codes. If you're somebody who has access to the management side of a repeater, you may use those, but that's not me. And then I can also then come here to my AM/FM channels, and so you can see I've added some local FM channels here in the Phoenix area. I've added a couple of AM channels. When I'm in the AM mode in that secondary receiver, I can go through channel or VFO mode. And then I have a bunch of channels here that I can set up if I have some favorite channels in my shortwave channels. And so you can set those. And so you can use that secondary receiver in both channel and frequency mode. And that information is programmed here in this display. So with all the programming done, I can then go to my tools. If I want to import a picture that comes up when the radio boots up, this is where I would do that. And it has to be a particularly formatted picture. So in this case, a 24-bit 160 by 128 pixels bitmap. It's not going to take a JPEG or something like that. It wants a bitmap. And so you could add that to the opening screen of your radio should you choose. And then here in help, it's just help about, and it tells you what the version number is for this particular CPS. So with all this done, then what I would do is I would go over to save, and I would place it on my computer somewhere where I want to use it. I usually give these a name that says the year, the month, the date, and then the radio model, and then I save that so I can access this. Should sometime in the future I mess things up, I can easily convert this back to a known setting that works. And then when I'm done, I'm going to press write, and all this stuff is going to write back to the radio. So again, the write data dialog box comes up. It's asking me to wait, but I'll have to wait after I start. And so start happens, and it reads that information back to the radio. So this is really, really pretty handy for you. The factory CPS, again, not quite as robust as chirp, but it has that ability to import those chirp frequencies even from a different brand of radio, which makes this a very powerful CPS in terms of a factory style CPS, which normally aren't quite as robust as programming your radio in chirp or a commercially paid for system. So that's the factory CPS for the GS10B Pro. As always, if you found this video helpful, please click the thumbs up button below the video and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. Feel free to leave a comment too. Here's a link to my GS10B Pro review, as well as my amateur radio playlist for more reviews and how-tos. Thanks for watching, and 73.